And we are now live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Friday Push to Prod, Friday Push to Production. You know, the thing you should never do, as evidenced by our own inability to get this show out on time. It's generally a bad idea. The hope here is that this podcast becomes a weekly feature for community managers, by community managers, and also for those individuals interested in knowing what goes on behind the scenes of your favorite games and companies when everything goes sideways or right, because that happens too sometimes. I have two really great guests with me. Katie's not a guest. Katie's, you're going to just get sick of her, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Alex.
Great. So my name's Alex Engel. I'm a member of the Boston game development community. I've been involved in a bunch of different games you've heard of, games like EVE Online, Lord of the Rings Online, Dungeons & Dragons Online, did my stint at Turbine. Game of Thrones Ascent, Star Trek Timelines, Walking Dead. So a bunch of different online games and mobile games, mostly in the MMO and mobile space, and mostly in the role of operations support, including working alongside with Rick on many deployments to Turbine's MMOs back over many years of time. It's been a fun journey with you.
It's been interesting, that's for sure.
Yep.
And Katie, tell the people who you are.
Hi, I'm Katie Postma. I got my start working as the community director for Mist Worlds at Ubisoft. So I worked on, after Mist 3 came out, I started when Uru and Mist 4 were in development. From there, I went to Stargate Worlds, which was then canceled. And then I went to Jumpgate Evolution and worked with NetDevil and Gazillion, and it was canceled. And then I figured I had the touch of death. But then after a couple other small startups, I went to Disruptor Beam, where I met Alex, and Alex introduced me to Rick. On Disruptor Beam, I worked with Alex on Game of Thrones and Star Trek games. And since then, after about 4 years, I moved over to Stoic, where I am now working on Banner Saga. Banner Saga 1 and 2 are out, of course, and the third one comes out in July. And I've had a Friday today. Like, I'm ready to tell people what it's like to have everything on fire and everything.
You guys just launched on Switch, right?
It's my third live stream of the day for my third different corporate entity. So
Oh, geez.
Like, I know what.
So we're going to get good info from Katie.
Yeah, we just launched the first Banner Saga on Switch yesterday, which is awesome. And the second one's coming out soon, and then the third one will come out this summer. So we're in a really good spot with Banner Saga right now. But I'm going to drink heavily tonight. But I'm very happy to be here. Welcome everybody to the first of what we hope are many of these, where you'll learn all the tips and tricks on how to stay sane through many community fires.
And how to be a good community member during the fires and not add to it. So ultimately, I love how, look at this. Look, you want to see who's running the show? The one not drinking alcohol.
People are going to be like, what not to do? I'm taking notes on all the ways
things.
I can burn it all to the ground. We love you.
So even though they kind of halfway introduced me, I'll introduce myself really quick. My name's Rick Heaton. Some of you might know me as Sapience. I was community manager for Lord of the Rings Online for a while. I worked community manager for Extra Life. I was with Able Gamers for a while. Right now, I am director of community for YellowPike Media, which is an ad agency, and we work with a whole bunch of people. I've probably done stuff that you saw that you didn't know as me, because that's what agencies do. But that's me. I've been probably in and out of the games industry, God, for
I think we lost
20 years. Who did we lose?
I think we lost you.
You lost me.
Nope. I got him.
No, then you lost me then.
No, because we hear you too, unless you may have screen freeze. See, this is why you don't do things after 6 on a Friday. That's kind of the beauty of live, I guess, is that you never know what happens.
I said not to heckle, not.
Yeah, no heckling from within the show. We expect heckling from outside. You can do that in chat. In fact, as you're listening to the show, one of the things we really, really hope is that you will ask questions. You will interact with us. If we say something you find interesting, you agree with, you disagree with, please be nice. This isn't an adult rated stream, but Would definitely want to hear your questions, feedback, and thoughts about the topics that we discuss. And today we're going to talk about, as we've sort of been suggesting, pushing things live to production and all of the fun that entails. It really is a case of whatever can go wrong will in most cases. I know we've all gone through, as Alex pointed out, multiple releases, whether those be, patches or updates or hot fixes. I think my favorite wipeouts are hot fixes when you're fixing one thing and you blow up everything else. So I'm going to let Katie start with what was. Well, I let Alex do the intro first, so don't make faces at me.
You're good. I'm going to make faces at you the whole time.
What is one, and I don't want to say train wreck, but what train wreck really sticks in your mind? That one release where everybody knew everything was going to go exactly right, and it all took a giant leap to the left.
Holy crap. So the mother of all train wrecks, actually, this is going to be such a sad story. So if anybody out there is a member of the Mist community, please know that I love you and you are the reason I do what I do. And I'm still doing it 15 plus years later. So nothing you've ever done or said has ever made me want to pack it up and leave. I still have the same career that I set out doing all those years ago. So I was at Ubisoft only a handful of months. When I joined, we were in alpha for Uru, which was going to be Mist Online. And we were starting to let beta testers in bit by bit. And so every kind of Tuesday or Wednesday, I would send our producer a handful of people, 10 to 20 at the most. And they'd let a few more into the cavern. So people were coming in and for the first time exploring Mist Worlds together, which was incredible for that community who had always played on these islands solo. So one afternoon, Friday afternoon, I said, you know what, we didn't put anybody in this kind of Thursday, Friday into beta. So we're not going to have a bump in community over the weekend. Thinking everybody be like, yep, that's great, that's fine, whatever. I'm not going to say who it was on the team that did it. It wasn't me. But on Saturday night, somebody on the team noticed that we hadn't had a little incremental rise in beta testers. And so he selected a few people randomly to add them in and hit select all and hit send.
Oh.
And so this thing we were ramping up slowly and surely.
Whoops.
Oopsies.
And had one tiny server for instead of a server farm for, and etc. I mean, yeah, I'm not on the technical side of things. I'm on the holding people and patting their shoulder while they cry things. But Monday morning, it was just all a smoldering heap of ash, and it actually was one of several factors which triggered the decision to close that game without launching. So that turned into an offline game. Cyan was gracious enough to put out their, they had a lot of content coming up for, in the pipe for a few months, and they packaged that up as an offline experience, an individual experience, to recoup some of their costs. And the whole thing was just heartbreaking. Like that to me, that's not a Friday technically, but that's a Saturday night because we didn't really meet on Friday to go over what not to do on a weekend. And so it really was one of those biggest straws that broke that whole game's back, unfortunately. And it makes me sad to think about to this day. Wow. And it's weird because the timing right now is, if you guys don't know, the Mist 25th anniversary collection is on Kickstarter. There's 5 days left, so go back it. And you can get all the games on. And so I've been helping them with the Kickstarter, and I've been doing some interviews from the team on Mist 3, 4, and Uru. And so that's really close in my memory right now, kind of looking back at, it all could have been so different. But we learned a lot. And so don't push on Friday.
Don't push on Fridays, and don't let engineers invite people to beta, I think is the lesson there. Intentionally or unintentionally.
How did you know? Yeah, I mean, it was just really sad, and everybody felt terrible. And like I said, it was one factor, but it was enough of one. Yeah.
What should have been a slow ramp up became Unleash the Kraken. Ouch.
An immediate launch.
Well, it
We're
was
live.
a dozen or two. It was thousands, and yeah.
Wow, without the support behind it, that's wow. That kind of trumps everything. If you actually change the course of the game through
Monday morning, I was like, I usually have 50 emails. Why do I have 5,000? I don't understand. So,
oh my God.
It was pretty gross.
I almost wonder if Alex and I are going to come up with the same story, but I'll let him go next.
I'm going to steal it from you.
Probably.
So, there was a time in 2013
Yep.
at Turbine when we decided we were going to migrate our billing system and authentication system. We had an old billing system for, at that point, years and years and years. And it didn't do anything that we needed to do. We've been working on a replacement for a long time. So it was supposed to go live on Thursday was the idea, which of course is plenty of time to migrate an entire internal database and payment system and everything.
20 some years worth of customers.
Right. Yeah. Like I think at that point, yeah, at least 15 years worth of customers, let's say. Yeah. And we decided we were going to do that. And it failed in every way it is possible to fail. I think we did 3 database backups, database migrations, because the first 2 failed and the third one finally succeeded. We were at work for 90 hours straight. So that was people, like literally QA people sleeping under their desks, bringing in, like, made like a little tent fort, like over their cubicles and everything. And they were camping out. As manager of online ops at the time, the other manager and I were doing 12-hour swaps where we just like would come in, we'd like high five each other leaving, and then I'd be like, here's the 15-minute rundown of where we stand right now. Good luck. And then I'd go home and go to sleep. The worst thing, right, is like it was a holiday weekend. It was a 3-day holiday weekend. I had to call my wife on that Thursday, and I was like, shit's going down. And then on Friday, I was like, we have to cancel our vacation. Like, we have to cancel our trip up north into the mountains because I have to go to work. And, it's easy to look at it from the outside in and be like, what a terrible time. But like the human toll of saying, I have to cancel like my non-refundable deposit that I made on this trip. I ended up expensing it. So I was like, if you're going to keep me here, like, I'm expensing the lost money that I had from this event. But really what sticks in my mind is like, we all came together and made it happen, but it was 90 hours of total downtime for our backend services, every game that we were running and every system that we were hosting.
Yeah, no one could log into anything. Just to give you scope of this from a player standpoint, it's not like the billing system was down and we couldn't bill people. The login servers were down. The patchers were down, which, because everything's tied together...
It physically hurts.
I don't. Oh, believe me, it physically hurt.
It physically hurt us too. Yeah, we were hurt.
By like the third day, there was a lot of physical hurt.
Yeah.
But it was literally impossible for players to even log into the forums because it did a validation check against...
We were having trouble logging into the forums. So
we could get in once in a while, but players never could. So messaging became a challenge, explaining what was going on. It was all Facebook and Twitter. And then on the rare occasion when we'd get something that worked and a player could get into the forums or we could get into the forums, of course, it's the inevitable... And here's a learning opportunity for players. It was the inevitable, why aren't you talking to us? It's like, we've just spent 14 hours explaining in painstaking detail on Twitter and Facebook what is going on. This is why we have alternate, outside, non-connected places that you can look for information, because stuff like this.
So you remember that some of us went off reservation? We went outside to try to connect to the internet. Because our internet was working, but we were like, is it working external to the office? Like, can we log in, can we log into our internal systems external from the office? So we were like running outside in the office park, like into the woods on our phones, like trying to get a signal to check if our authentication stuff was online or not outside of the building. It was crazy.
Oh, it was nuts. Twitch with Frank says 4 days without the forums doesn't sound so bad. And from a certain point of view, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. But it was blissfully quiet outside of the office. Inside the office, it was terror.
It was literally a case of everything's on fire, you're on fire, and you're in hell, basically, for 90 hours.
I remember Warner Brothers' expense policy was $20 per head for dinner. And I was like, I'm in charge of getting dinner. I think it was Saturday night. And I was like, forget it. We're done getting like chicken, broccoli, ziti, or whatever it was. I'm getting something nice for the team because they've been here legitimately now for like 72 hours or 60 hours or whatever it was.
Prime rib for everyone.
Yeah. Well, so I went and I got the world's largest sushi platter.
Oh, I remember that.
30 people. And then...
oh, now I want sushi.
Well, our DBA, our DBA manager was like, "Look, I'm on the Atkins diet. Like, I can't have any carbos or anything like that." So I went out and I just picked up multiple rotisserie chickens from the place next door, and I was like, "All right, I'm ready. And I come back, and he's like, "I haven't eaten since noon, and this is 8 p.m." And he just grabs an entire chicken and just starts like literally devouring it in front of my eyes. It was amazing.
Wow.
They funded me on that expense report. They were
Did
like,
they really?
They kind
they were
of
like,
had
you
to.
really order $400 worth of sushi for 30 people. And I was like, I absolutely did. And I remember HR was like, don't question anything on their expense report. You have no idea what they just did.
It was bad. I can remember because it was one of those things where there was. It's not like we walked into this blind. There were months of planning. There was months of testing. It had been fully QA'd. It had been tested. It had been staged. It had been soaked. I mean, everything you're supposed to do was done. And then, because this is how the world really is, the second it went live, it just blew up. And everything went south.
It's like we took it down and just never came back up.
Yep.
Yeah.
It never came up. Messaging was a nightmare. And again, it's because it was the core of all of the login systems that were also wrecked. They couldn't get to anything. You couldn't even start the game to look at the launcher to see what was going on. And we couldn't log in to update the launcher. So even if they had gotten in, there was nothing there that was going to be helpful to them.
And all you can do is like, we're
feed,
aware of the
no
issue.
servers.
We're looking into it. We're aware of the issue. We're looking.
Yeah,
we understand your frustration. We share your frustration. I want my mommy.
That's the way it worked, because like I was like, no one is more upset than me right now that things are down. Like, no one is angrier than we are that things are down.
And I think Alex makes a really good point. And Katie, you probably agree with this. As angry and upset as players get, and we totally understand. I don't think any of the three of us begrudge anyone going into a holiday weekend not being able to play their game. But there's a human cost on the other side too. I mean, Alex, you potentially lost. I mean, Warner Brothers was nice enough to reimburse, but you lost a vacation. You lost quality personal time. So I think it's important when things like this happen, on the side of the community itself, you need to understand these are people there, and nobody wants to be sitting, in their office for 12 straight hours knowing that they're coming back on a holiday weekend until this is fixed. And no one wants to have all of those conversations rather than going and spending a nice weekend with your spouse or significant other.
It was super funny in retrospect.
When stuff like that happens, I think two things. I think one, if people are complaining and going off and sharing their frustration, it's because they really deeply care and they want to be playing. And you want that. You don't want it to be like, hey, guess what? Our server's broke and no one gave a crap. Like that would be the worst, right? Is like if it was crickets, it's like, oh, well, does no one play this? But number two is, as frustrated as you are, we are, but you guys can vent and we literally can't. We have to say, we know that this and while inside we're going like Alex and I have had days where I'm like, Alex, and he's like, Katie, I know, and I'm like, but Alex, and he's like, but Katie, I know, and then both of us to the public are like, hi everyone, we are aware of this problem and we're working internally. And Alex is always like, Katie and I are both working very hard, and I'll be like, as Alex and I have said, and inside we're going, Alex, and he's going, and we're just like. But then
no, it's exactly true.
We're all zen here. We're just carefully and methodically determining the problem, and meanwhile, there's people running back and forth in our field of vision.
And I think sometimes maybe that hurts us, like from the perception standpoint, because we're trying to keep it together for our communities and not, run around hair on fire going, oh my God. And I guess sometimes that gets perceived by the community as you're cold and don't care.
Yeah.
You don't understand what I'm going through, which I think is fair because we're trying to be, professional and informative without letting them know that as soon as we stop typing and hit send, we go back in the corner and sob in the little ball.
Alex likes to post after the fact, which is amazing. I learned a lot from Alex in my time with him, but one of the things he likes to do is like a mini community post-mortem. And so we'll have this kind of fire on Friday, let's say. Monday morning, he'll say, "Dear community, you may have noticed on Friday that, when you went to do the thing wasn't there, or, you went to step on the floor and you fell through a hole," or whatever it is. And he'll say, "Here's exactly what happened." Without giving them so much information, it'll burden them. And always being honest, he'll very sincerely say, "This is what happened. We had a guy who thought he was doing this and he did this and the other guy did this. This resulted in this." So he gives them just enough information technically and candidly that they're aware that not only do we know what happened and now we've solved it, or we know how to solve it, but we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. And so he's often said, "Here's what I'm going to do as a producer to make sure."
Yeah.
Right?
It always
Here's what
happens
I'm going to do
again.
as a producer to make sure that this never happens again. Or if it does, I'll just post and I'll have this post I can cut and paste. But I find that's really good too.
Yeah.
Because people on Monday morning are just as angry as they were Friday. They're like, "Hey, I'm rested up now. I want to go on the mat again." And he'll just be able to explain.
Well, I guess that's a good question though, Rick. I don't know if you want to segue into this, but how much information is too much information to share? Or how much is too little?
Right, exactly. I mean, there's a point at which, and I'm trying to think as a player right now, there's a point at which I don't care, right? It's like, all right, you told me this broke. Now tell me how you're fixing it or how long it's going to be and give me reasonable guesses. And I think there's maybe a risk of oversharing because we all deal with stuff that's proprietary at some level. So there's certain things we can't tell you. So we can get to a point where this is what happened, but I can't go into the weeds. And when you have someone like, an IT manager in your player base who goes, "Well, I work in so-and-so, and I know if you're doing this, then it must have been that." And because we're using different systems or, we're doing different things than what they're used to, there's no profit in going and saying, "Well, no, you're wrong," and trying to explain what we're doing. Because again, sometimes we can't.
Right.
And now you just look like a jerk that you're arguing with this person.
Right. But at the same time, it's tough, right? That's what makes us human, right? And I know that if we go too far in the other direction, we just become mouthpieces, right? We basically toe the line and people say, "Well, that's what you're going to say." I always found it super useful to be in chat channels like Discord or Skype or whatever. I mean, Katie and I were in these player advocate channels for ages for Game of Thrones and in all the Facebook posts. So I think it's important to pull the curtain back a bit because you do want to humanize the team a bit and say by the way, we're people too. We're upset. It's our responsibility and you should hold us accountable for what's going on. But at the same time, please understand that we're taking this seriously. And judge us based on whether we respond to it appropriately or not. But I think that's challenging, especially with a larger company when it can be seen as so faceless, right? So how did you guys attempt to make a larger company seem human?
Well, by doing just that, by rolling out individual experiences that the team members were having, and not necessarily WB or Turbine said, but hey, I talked to Alex. And this is what he had to say, or, I know I posted a few times during that debacle. It's like, hey, I just talked to Nod. So now I'm talking about a conversation with a person, right? Instead of the corporate overlords have said. So I think you try to make it clear to people that you are having conversations with people inside on the ground, not getting your words parsed by some, legal person who tells you what you can and can't say.
And it's not a trick. It's like,
No.
I'll often say, our writer Matt has decided to do this, or our producer Alex, and he'll be in to talk to you in a minute. Or Matt, you've said before, oh, hey, our CTO Max said this. Like, you just humanize it. I think you humanize it by humanizing it. You go, yo, you know what? I didn't get to see my 2 kids all weekend, or you would say, I didn't get to go away from my wife. That's all they need to, because we care.
You don't want to play that pity up, though.
No, I'm not doing it.
You don't
for
want to
pity.
sound like
I'm saying this is how much we care, guys. You came first, like ahead of my weekend with my family, because this is important, and they understand, and they know this is what I do. My job doesn't stop on Friday at 5, as is evidenced by this podcast. But like, it doesn't stop.
But you know what I like, Katie,
It's
is
a labor of
to your
love.
point, is when the community comes forward, when you have community members that understand and come forward and say, hey, you don't know what Nod's plans were this weekend. You don't know if Rick was supposed to go somewhere.
For all these examples. I like
Yeah,
that.
well, because on my screen you're
the only
front
one
and
that has
center.
money to travel.
And well, because we really don't care. We know Katie's just, she's just a corporate shill. So we just know that that's how she goes. But no, that's unfair.
Wait, this is a good time. I'm going to break in. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rick. I'm not really sorry to interrupt you, Rick. I will never be sorry. There's a question from our audience. Gold Daisy has a question for Nod. And
Shoot.
I assume you're a she. I'm sorry, Gold Daisy, if you're not a she. Says, Nod, tell us about your books. You have a lot of books back there. And to which I answered, those are 5% of his books.
I don't think it's that much.
So one of the things I do in addition to working in the game industry is I also collect video game art and design books. So most of us in the game industry, especially those of us who are like front and center in front of the community, we love video games, obviously. And one small way I try to keep our history alive is by taking books that are about our stories as video game developers. So far too often, the story that we have internally as like game developers making a game gets lost because it's proprietary, because it's under NDA, because it's in some way considered competitive knowledge. And if you do a search on Google, you'll find that like there are very few stories of people making games. So behind me are everything from, art books about Xenogears, like the Xenogears history in Japanese, but that's not enough, right? There are other books, like ones that Katie and I have worked on, like The Art of Game of Thrones Ascent, where this is one of our games and books that we made because we wanted to tell our story. So these are all books that I've brought together and that I'm collecting over the course of years, really, that are all about our history as game developers. Some of them are very, very rare. Some of them are super common. But it's important is that they tell a story, right? And some of them, I'm happy to say, are really preserved here until I can finally donate them to a library. So that's the end game. I have about 450 of them. Some of them are super rare. Some of them are very common, like I said, but I want them to be preserved as our history. If you went up in my attic's full of video game art and artifacts from the development of games. So like world maps of video games that were they only made one of because that was the map they made for the game. But these books here, like this is our history as game developers, and that's something I feel very passionate about. Something I feel very strongly about is preserving our history and why we made games. And so that's most of what's behind me. This side I'll angle the camera a little bit. This side over here, that's all my wife's to be read books. So she has a huge chunk of books that are just like ones she reads on the subway. And then over there, even further, are the art and design books, including up there, which are all mostly movies and things like that. So, Blade Runner and various other anime and art books and things like that. So there are a lot of books. It's my second passion after video games. And I think like you guys, you all have your passions afterwards. Rick, what's your number 2 passion?
I think it's right behind me.
Number 2. We know his number 1 passion.
Is it a dungeon? Is your number 2 passion a dungeon? Is that what it is?
No.
No,
I think everyone's referring to the shuttle over my shoulder. It's a 2,500 piece Lego set.
Is that a generic Imperial shuttle?
No, it's actually Tidarium. It's got Luke and everybody in it. So
Sweet.
Vader's in it.
I bought that model.
Alex
It's a crazy thing.
Alex's will has 2 lines in it. One is clear my browser history, and number 2 is give all my books to a museum.
I think that first one should be in everyone's will. Clear my browser history.
Yep.
Wipe my drive.
Yeah, literally run a couple magnets across my computer.
I'm pretty sure my kids are just gonna take my computer and hurl it out of the tallest building they can find.
You don't think like a priest is going to come in first with some holy water and just like, make sure that it's okay?
I don't think it'll be safe for a priest to even enter the premises to do that. No, that's not true. I'm an angel.
See, what did I see? This is why I said what I said earlier. But I think Alex it was a really good example of something I don't think people necessarily understand about us as being in the game industry. We didn't come into trust me on this part. All right, everybody pay attention. We did not come into this industry to get rich, because that's not happening.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. We came into the industry
funny.
because we love gaming, right? We love gaming, and
I think the rule of thumb is you generally take a 30% salary hit when you join the game industry, somewhere around. Yeah.
Easily.
For men, no, I'm not riding up that.
That's
hill.
a
Everything's
different podcast.
But this being a Friday Push to Prod podcast, right? One of the things that's challenging and that burns people out of the industry is that it is expected that you put in a huge amount of effort and time outside of your normal 40-hour work week, usually for less pay than where you're at. So that's a thing that I think as community managers, we have to be cognizant of too. And I think it's important for our mental health that we take that time off, that you take those vacations when you can, that you understand that because you're on all the time, you need to take that personal health and mental health time for yourself. I know that as much as I love all the players I've worked with and as much as I value and enjoy all the time I spend with them, and many times I had to take an enforced break and say, like, I'm not going to be available. I'm just not going to check email. I'm not going to check Slack unless it's urgent and they can call me or text me. But you have to take that time for yourself because you do throw yourself in so hard and heavily in there. And you also know in the back of your head that you could be working for less hours for more money someplace else. So, like, I think it's important that as a community manager, you always take that mental health time for yourself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't think people realize that there are actually conversations as holidays roll around. I mean, I can remember who's going to work what shift on Christmas Eve, who's stuck with the Christmas Eve shift, or yeah, and it's I'm going to be in Florida with my mom, but from 6 to 9. I'm going to be on Twitter or in the forums or doing something work related.
Have you guys seen that ad on Facebook that says, going on vacation, community manager or social media manager, going on vacation, here are your, and it says something like, here are your solutions for when you go away. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. All it's doing is telling you how to bring everything
with you.
And it's like, what? I thought you were going to like offer me a girl for $80 an hour to do what I do, even though I make, a tenth of that. Like, it's crazy. It's like, here's what you can do. You can sign on from the pool. You can sign on from in the shower. You can sign on from, the bottom.
Get a waterproof case for your phone when you're diving. Yeah, it's
exactly. I'm like, I don't like you. That's not right. Like, I thought you were offering me a chance to actually get away, but no.
Hey, yeah, I bet you remember in 2015 after we released AVA in Goda, and on Thanksgiving Day it crashed. So I was in my living room on the couch, and everyone's literally carving the turkey. My family's over there, and they're like, "Are you coming to the table?" And I was like, "I am literally crafting a blog post right now to address why AVA went down."
Well, the good news is I'm in Canada, so your turkey day is not my turkey day. So, but the same thing happened at Thanksgiving in Canada. I'm like, hi, I'm at my mother-in-law's and their Wi-Fi is like all she needs it for is Candy Crush. So I need help. So at least Alex and I could kind of help each other, on the non-holidays.
Remember,
and I have to thank Kristen for creating those holiday schedules for us. Like, we had another producer at Disruptor Beam. Hi, Kristen. I love you, Kristen. She's in the chat. Who used to make these great schedules for us. She would come to us and say, when can you work? When can you work? And then she would take all the crappy times no one else wanted to work. Like, she just said, I wonder how long it would be until the Thanksgiving story came up. But thank goodness, again, we learned from that, here's who's going to be on which day. Here's who's going to be in engineering. Here's who's going to be in production. And here's who's going to be on support.
Right.
Exactly.
So
I remember.
Yeah.
But nothing. So worst of the worst story, right? Like,
right.
You guys remember when in EVE Online they deleted your configuration file?
Oh God, yeah.
So this was a great story. This is after I was working on EVE Online, but they had a file in the EVE Online file structure called boot.ini, and boot.ini was used for EVE Online to boot up and everything, and it was like their main boot file. The problem is there's also a file in Windows called boot.ini, and it makes your Windows boot up. And so someone forgot to clarify the file path, so it just went to c:/boot.ini and deleted it. So people like bricked their whole machines when they updated it, and they restarted their computer. If you didn't restart your computer, you were fine. You could like download a repair file and everything. But there were people who were like, I just updated EVE Online, and they like, now my computer's busted. And everyone's like, that's ridiculous. And then like an hour later, the developers were like, shit, man, that's a lot of reports. Like, we've gotten a lot of forum posts on this. This is weird. And then someone searched through their old computer. They said plugged a second computer into their hard drive, and they were like, yeah, I'm missing a boot file. Hey,
wow.
It says it was deleted the same time I updated EVE Online. And that was like, apparently the look of terror on some of their faces was like, oh no.
Rightly
they were
so.
like, emergency patch, push it out instantly. Like, we know exactly why it went wrong, but they got, deservedly so, got a ton of bad press for that. But like at the same time, I was like, dude, that could have been us. Like, that is totally.
It could be anyone.
Going, look at that press they got. Look at all that press.
But I think it brings up a good point though, Alex. We tend, and maybe not we as forward-facing people, because part of our job is to take input back to the teams. But I think we do sometimes get pushback, like you indicated, where the team just looks at us and goes, oh, come on, right? That can't possibly be happening.
But 98% of the time, that's true.
It is true, but that 2% of the time does happen. So you kind of, it's fair to say you ignore community feedback at your own peril in situations like that, because there is that 2% chance they could be right. So it's always worth taking it to the team and taking the funny look.
Yeah, it's good to be safe and say, is it possible that this is occurring?
Right.
Versus like, there's no way this could be occurring, and then you end up, the next day you wake up and you go, uh-oh.
That's exactly what was occurring. Yeah. Then they're done that. So to kind of go back to the things going south, what is the strangest thing you ever saw go south? That when everyone, other than the boot file thing, because I think that's just an all-around winner, when everything was done, and most companies do the post-mortem on what the hell went wrong, what was the one thing that you can think of where you look back at it and go, really? That's what the problem was? How did we not catch that?
We've had decimal places that were wrong, that when something was supposed to cost a gold, it cost 1,000, or if you sold something, it was supposed to give you 1 gold and it gave you a couple thousand, that people were like, bing, 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 bing. And then Alex had to go, now I've gone through everyone's files, and anybody that made any gold between this time of day and this time of day on this day, we had to kind of backtrack that. That was a weird one. We had some weird pricing issues where it was literally someone was asleep and was like, how much is this worth? I don't know, 100 gold, fine. But it was something you could buy for 10 silver, something like that, where all of a sudden you'd have, we're like, why this? He would look at the charts, and all of a sudden people that would normally have like this amount of gold, we're like up here, this amount of gold, why do all these people
so it was obvious gold? When you went back and looked who was benefiting.
It was, but of course there'd be the one guy that reported it, and we'd be like, oh, okay, you know what, we're going to take most of your gold, but we're going to like leave you 1,000 as a thank you for reporting this. But the people that didn't report it, we were like, no, you get no gold. No gold for you.
And I think that's a good point, and it's something I think that's important to touch on. From our standpoint, and I know going back to our epic 90 hours, Alex, one of the things the community team did was, there has to be a compensation to the community at some point. Your community is always going to be, at minute 1, how are you going to make this up to me? I mean, that's a given. That portion of every community exists. You cost me a minute. All right, I'm going to send you your 1/thousandth of a cent back, right? Those people. But when certain things happen, or someone comes clean with, hey, I found this bug and I kind of accidentally on purpose exploited it, how do you thank them? What do you do? I know for the 90-hour outage, I know we gave a whole bunch more game time than was actually lost.
I think it's a tough balance, right? I tend to err on the side of being too generous personally, and the reason why I do that is that we have and usually not usually, but sometimes I'm countermanded on that by other people, but I try to be a little bit more generous because at the end of the day, people who play these online games are in a manufactured virtual economy, and we have total control over the inputs and outputs of that virtual economy. So it's a lot easier for us to give something out in an area that has flexibility. So something that's like time delimited or is in the grand scheme of things not worth that much, but is perceived to be worth a ton. It's far easier to err on the side of compensation. That's not always shared across the industry. A lot of people choose to not do compensation because they're concerned that people are going to take advantage of it. But I strongly believe that more compensation tends to lead to happier players, especially when they come back into the game after a while and they see this like stockpile of sorry messages in their mailbox. Like, that feels pretty cool. But I do want to say the strangest thing that I've seen was when the internal server farm was running too hot because the AC had broken down. Now, the server farm inside the office had been bricked in with concrete walls so that no one could break in. Basically, so you couldn't like crawl through the drop ceilings and like go steal a blade from the rack. So that meant that there was no way to easily vent the heat. So I saw one of our employees with a sledgehammer like running through the hallway, and I was like, "What is going on?" And he jumps up this ladder that he punched through the drop ceiling, and he's like slamming a hole through the cinder blocks. And he's like, "I know it's not structural." Swam, spam, just knocking the cinder block out. And we were like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "You got to have a place for the hot air to go." And so he smashed a hole through the cinder block enclosure of the server room, and then got like a Danger Will Robinson style AC unit in there, where it was like its arms were flailing everywhere, blasting cold air in the server room. And I was like, is this normal? It was like the first year or two I was working in the game industry, and I was like, I don't think this is normal. And my wife works at a nice conservative environmental firm, and she's like, I've never had that happen here. And I was like, I still don't think it's normal in the game industry.
Nothing's normal your first 2 years in the game industry. After that, like 5 years go by, 6, 7, 10 years go by, and you're like, oh, that's nothing. Let me tell you about the time there was a guy running through the hall with a sledgehammer.
Right, right. It makes everything else seem quaint in comparison. You're like, are you at risk of losing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of hardware for overheating so that you ran out and grabbed a sledgehammer to smash a hole in the wall? If not, it's probably not that bad.
Right.
It's like anytime I'm let go or there's cutbacks, I think, oh, you know what? I've never been fired from the parking lot before, and I have friends who have been. So hi, Rufus.
I have friends who have.
Let's not bring Sigil into this.
I'm just deep cut. But I'm just saying there are people out there who are like literally, they're lined up against the wall or whatever. Like, it's bad, but I've thankfully never been part. I've been blindsided, but never I've never been axed with I've gotten out many times before the Titanic sank. So
but you guys heard about how Sigil went down, right?
Yeah, I was referring to that, but I just didn't want to.
And to be fair to Sigil, I don't know if we're allowed to, but to be fair to Sigil, I know of other companies that have done the same thing where, again, you're not even allowed to go back for your keys.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
At least, I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, guest star here. Rufus has decided to join the podcast.
Hi,
hello.
Hi, Rufus. He heard my voice. He's like,
Rufus.
Hey, there's that lady that I hate.
Oh.
He hates you. You're the second person. He hates you the second most in the world.
Second most of any. Is Sarah first?
Sarah's first.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Rufy. I love him. It doesn't matter.
one of the things, talking about compensation, I think one of the things, Alex, you were talking about pushback, that we kind of overlook, because I tend to agree with you that it's virtual stuff for us largely. It's not long-term damage, so be generous. I think there is, however, a fear of setting a precedent. Now, are they going to demand that kind of ridiculous compensation every time something happens, or are they going to,
That happened to us.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Because Alex is generous, which is one of the things I adore most about him, not only with his own time and personal space, but that sounded weird. Alex is very generous. He's very kind. He's very giving, to the point where I never had to stay in a hotel when I was in Boston. He and his wife graciously opened their guest room to me just so that I could feel like I stayed. Because I would have to go to Boston often for a week at a time. And Rick, I didn't know you yet. Anyway, so I'd stay with Alex. Alex is very generous. When things go wrong, we would often say, hey, what can we give people? And I'd be like, we could give them all 10 gold. He'd be like, all right, let's give everyone 100 gold. And I'd be like, whoa, so that was wonderful. But then it kind of bit us in the butt one time. We were doing a Christmas giveaway. We were doing the 12 days of Game of Thrones, and which I've actually borrowed heavily throughout the years and done again and again. So we did this giveaway, and it was like, we were giving them pretty nice stuff, and it kind of ramped up till the last day. It was something really, really nice. And then the next year we did it. We're like, you know what? Let's just rehash that. And we started giving stuff away. Day one, people like, oh, I can't wait till day 12 when it's going to be something. Like right away, they're like, oh, don't give us this crap, like this cheap crap. We want the good stuff. I'm like, it's been one day,
Right.
You sit on Santa's lap and go, listen, old man. Like,
where's my BMW?
But, this is a good time to talk about how the community will also autocorrect. If you don't jump in and defend yourself or get defensive, I guess is more the point. The community will say, you know what? They just gave you something for nothing, for absolutely nothing other than generosity and goodwill and the spirit of the season. Here's something that you can take that you didn't otherwise have, and it's optional. You don't have to click the link that gives you the free stuff. We literally had people complaining, oh, no, I've got this useless item in my inventory. We're like, really?
You can delete things from your inventory, just saying.
Exactly. But if actually sell them. So they're getting something literally for nothing. But if you wait long enough, if you just kind of, I'm going to go to the bathroom and see what this looks like in 20 minutes or whatever, you come back and it's like, you know what? 10 people have just jumped on that person and said, how dare you? So, I mean, there is that as well.
And I think that's kind of the holy grail for us as community managers, is you want a community that, at least in part, because there is no everyone will do it situation, but at least in part where you have individuals who have been around your community long enough that kind of understand how things work and appreciate the challenges, and they will come to your defense. And I think the holy grail is when you come to a thread that you just know. I mean, you pause when you click on it because it's just going to be the towering inferno, right? And you get in there and there's a half dozen people fighting the fight for you with your words.
So how do you build that kind of community? So I think that's, if this is going to be a teachable moment in this podcast, like, what are the things that you guys have done to build that sort of community within your, or build that sort of relationship with your community in your games?
The small group of, we have one at every game. Alex, you've had them, I've had them. The small group of community leaders that have a moderate disposition, that won't bullshit you just because they're a fanboy, but they'll be candid. They'll tell you straight how it is, but they're also your advocates, not officially, but they're that, what I call the little foundation of the community, where it's usually between 10 and 20 people. At Game of Thrones, we had our small council. On Star Trek, we had the council, right? Wasn't it called the council on Star Trek Timelines? And then the one I have now for Banner Saga, we call the Conclave because it's a Viking game. And it's, like I said, you just kind of grab half a dozen, 10, 15 people, and they have direct access to the team. They can contact you through multiple means. They might have your direct email. We have a special channel in Discord and Slack for our guys. And if you want to get something out quick as honestly as you can. You can say, you know what, guys, share this, and they'll run with it. They'll share it across, especially in Game of Thrones. We had people who had, they had these huge, what were guilds called? I can't even remember. Alliances, where they had to. We didn't know where all the Facebook groups were and all the chats on Congregate were and all the places they were literally congregating. And so we would tell our small group, the small council, and they'd run and share the news with everybody. So if there was a showstopper bug, or if there was something we needed the word to get out, we would tell those guys, and then we'd start putting it out on our social media and other means.
And I can't emphasize enough like how you need to turn those people over. I think that it's about done that every 6 months was really good, and it's not about just it's not about like, oh well, your time is up. It's about getting different perspectives and having.
They don't have tenure,
yeah. You don't want to have the same people coming in because it's not fair to everyone else in your community, and it's not fair to the people who are in there because you don't get a broad set of experiences, and they just end up getting. It becomes a normal thing, right? They never have a chance to become anything other than, the group that happens to be your advisory group. I think we ended up going through like 300 or 400 people on Game of Thrones. It was a pretty big group, but I want to emphasize that it's very, very important across every product to like have that dedicated group of feedback of people who aren't super haters, but also aren't just, yes men who come in and say, oh, everything you do is great.
They can't
to be honest,
be,
most of what we do is merely okay.
So there's a corollary to that, though, because I work on a game that doesn't have new it's a one and done game, and it's a single player game and multiple games, and the team is tiny. We've had, when I joined 18 months ago, I actually asked the guys that were there, hey, you know what, who are the people that you go right to? Like, who did you go to for community management before I got here? And they gave me 3 names. I asked those 3 people if they wanted to be on my conclave. And then I asked them to tell each of them to tell me 3 more people. So that's how I got my initial 9. And 1 left, and I added 2 more. So I currently have 11. And that's been more than 14 months with that 11 people, and I'm not changing them out. Nobody wants to do this. It's not like I have stuff going on every day. We literally have something to share or ask them every couple of weeks. So in this case,
different
it's
for
actually
a live product.
It's weird because it's working a whole different way. If I started shaking that up, it would probably breed more distrust than trust. However, if we ever do create a serial game, I will make sure to do exactly that, Alex, and cycle them through, because you and I found the reason being not just to get that diverse perspective, but also you get people that kind of start to feel entitled, not in a bad way. They can't help it. It's like, you know what? I've got Katie and Alex's ear. I can tell them anything I want. I can tell them all my hopes and dreams and wishes. But then they start to think, oh, why aren't you listening to me anymore? It's like, you know what? We've been doing this for 3 months. It's time for you. Thank you for your time. We need
because it's only one factor, right? So it's only one component, and unfortunately, it's impossible to pull the curtain back entirely because, to be honest, like a lot of the criteria that go into making video games are outside of the information that we can share. So things that are under non-disclosure agreements, things that are licensing issues, things that are just internal prioritization and company priorities that are not possible to share with people that aren't under a non-disclosure agreement or aren't employees.
I have my conclave under an NDA.
So Katie, you pointed to the sense of entitlement that arises from someone staying in one of these councils too long. I think there's a flip side to that too. I think the larger community, as they see someone who is always the person, who is always in there, that begins to diminish their value to the larger community because now they're a shill. They begin to take on this perception within the larger community that they always have them there. So I don't know if I can trust this person anymore because clearly they're a mouthpiece because they've always been there. So I think there's a double risk there that it can actually harm the community member being in that group too long because their credibility is damaged.
Yeah,
right?
you're not wrong. We have one guy that's probably the most vocal, and he's probably in the most spaces online and the most social media, because he's 6 hours ahead of me in the time zone. He gets on before I do. So there'll be Steam forums that he's answered before I can get there, for example. But he'll often say, he's Greek, he's lovely, he's wonderful, but he pulls no punches. He'll be like, yep, Stoic knows about this. I guess they just decided not to fix it for 6 months. Like, he'll say stuff like that. I'm like, dude, like, why did you say that? He's like, it's true. I'm like, oh yeah, fair enough. You don't work for me. Like, he owes me nothing, I owe
Right.
him everything. And so in that sense, he's kept, I think, his credibility. But there are others, you're absolutely right. And if it ever got to that, I think because our community is very slow moving compared to what I was dealing, like DB prepped me for anything life can ever throw at me. I think if it
Right.
ever sped up, or we put out, like I said, a game that has more content or multiple players, we'd have to do it differently. But for now, it's working for us. And
So
I've told them all, just be yourself. You are not speaking for us. You
right.
have our ear, but they're not speaking for the company.
Right.
But you're
I-
right.
I think there's another challenge in companies that either don't have the resources to put together that kind of tight-knit council and management and manage it on a regular basis. How does a company like that deal with gaining credibility? And I think the easiest answer is whoever is the face person, whether that's a CS person or a community person, or the lore author on the game, whoever that person is that is most frequently in the forefront addressing the community, has to be within certain confines. Obviously, we all keep talking about NDAs, as transparent as possible and as practical. Because as Frank said earlier, don't give an engineering answer to a non-engineer because it's just noise to them. So how do you decide what that line is? How do you decide what I'm being transparent is compared to maybe I've said too much and this is going to come back and bite me in the ass?
I mean, the number one rule, right, is be prepared for everything that you say, including this podcast, to show up in your would you want everyone to listen to it and hear it? So is everything that we're saying today, is everything that we've said on the forums ever, is everything we've ever inhabited as an online persona scrubbed of things that you would be concerned, right, that you would be concerned about? I periodically will go through my social media post history and everything else, and I'll just go ahead and get rid of it. I'll nuke whatever is potentially controversial. You got to approach every interaction with your community with that level of rigor. Like, you have to assume that everything that you say is not only going to be read, but also discussed over, and usually in places that you have very little influence over. So you have to be prepared to hedge in some appropriate cases when you can't nail down stuff that's accurate or that you think is very unlikely to change, but then also be ready and willing to say, this is how I intend this to come off. Like, I don't think you could over explain your intentions because text is so impersonal. You have to be able to say, by the way, that was me joking. And I think if anyone on the Star Trek Discord is watching this or reading this, like, you'll know the times that I would talk in there and be like, oh, I am joking. And you may think, oh, it's totally obvious that he's joking. But it's not necessarily obvious from the context of chat, especially if someone screen grabs it and posts it all over Facebook or Reddit or something like that.
That opens a whole joking topic, which I just
did on my weekly show, actually.
Yeah.
About just kidding and how it's a cop-out, yeah.
It's really easy to just toss in a joke, and in front of the right room, everybody's like, ha ha ha, okay, and it breaks the tension. Some people are like, you know what, you're not taking this seriously, and it can backfire really quickly. So I'm so careful. I tend to joke, especially in social media. I will joke with my publisher's social media account and with other game development social media accounts. Very, very seldom with player accounts. I won't do a funny GIF or like a blow a kiss or something. I'll do that with other corporate accounts. And I often know the social media manager who's sitting there laughing. One of the things I do with Obsidian is we always do the two supernatural guys. So like they'll be Jared and I'll be the other one. Like we'll do those gifts back and forth, but yeah, I'll do a little of that. Goes a very long way and can go south fast.
So in case you're wondering what just happened behind me, I have auto timers on my lights. So this is how I know it's 7:00, which means we should be getting close to wrapping this up. But I did want to throw out just kind of one more thing to the whole transparency thing. It is possible to have the world's greatest intentions and want to be transparent and share information that is not under NDA, that is not anything that you think will incite a riot, that will immediately do so upon sharing it. Things that are just simple statements of fact and truth, which maybe people don't want to hear all the time. Especially certain, shall we say, competitive elements of your community may not like hearing that, statistically speaking, they aren't the majority. And telling them that, not always the best idea.
I think it's critical to remember that for most online games, especially, the end boss are the developers. You know,
right.
that's something that I think it can be challenging to accept early on in your career. That
right.
In many ways, getting the developers to do what you want them to do is the final challenge and the final raid that you have to complete and clear. And that it is a competition among some people across all communities, across my 13 years of game industry experience. It is present across every community. It is present across everywhere. At the end of the day, you want a game that's the best and most fun for you. And it's challenging to remember that there are people who don't play games the way you do, and that
right.
don't do things that way. I think of the Alliance versus Alliance people in Game of Thrones Ascent and the Dragon Hatchers in Game of Thrones Ascent. Not necessarily the same people, not necessarily the same drive. In Lord of the Rings Online, the monster play people who were out in the Etten Moors fighting people day in, day out, and the lore monkeys and lore junkies who were there for the fidelity of Lord of the Rings Online. Very, very different perspectives. And having the influence and getting the developers who author the content to believe or work in the way that you want them to work can materially impact the kind of game that you're playing in the future. And so remembering that too and saying like, yeah, that's a big killer too, is you are the final boss at the end of the day, especially if you're the only or one of the very few people who are transparent and open in the forums.
Absolutely. So before we head out, I see Katie's doing the meet and greet in the chat.
Can you mod me there? Can you click on my name and
I can. I'll do it right afterwards. So we do want to thank everyone. I've been watching. I've been watching our listener viewer count, whatever. Hi, Rufus.
Hey, Rufy.
We've averaged a pretty decent number of people. There were about 20 people in here at one point who actually thought our nonsense was worth listening to, and we really appreciate you guys. We hope this has lived up to what we billed it as. We hope it wasn't as much of a train wreck as I really thought it was going to be, and it turns out, I think, maybe that it wasn't. And I hope you'll come back for future shows, because we appreciate you taking the time to listen. And Katie and Alex, I appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. Parting thought. We'll let Katie go first because Alex was all grumpy that I kept picking on him. So we'll let Katie go with 3 sentences. Final thought.
So my final thought is I just had a Friday that like everything was on fire. I was just telling Rick, like I just came off a Friday where I have to, like I literally had to leave another live stream and jump into this one. And I had to leave it early. So my Friday was just like these Fridays we talk about, like don't plan meetings at 4 o'clock on Friday. Don't plan live streams at 5 and 6 o'clock on Friday. If we hadn't pushed this one up, I'd still be at another one. Anyway, so I've actually liked being here and talking about this because now I feel like I can go relax for the weekend. So be kind to your community managers, guys.
Alex.
My final thought is the physical location of most game studios is present on their website. Please send packaged goods, not unpackaged goods, but find a place that will send cookies or pizza or coffee or something, like a reputable restaurant, and send it to your fellow developers when you are having a long night, because they are probably having a long night too. And nothing is better than getting a box of brownies at 7 p.m. on a Friday or on Mondays.
I've been the recipient of those brownies. It is very much appreciated. I guess my final thought would be that, to Katie's point, don't ever schedule stuff for 5 on a Friday, because even when you're guaranteed that nothing could possibly go wrong. Even just this simple podcast, a conflict popped up and it had to shift. So always be prepared, expect the unexpected, and know that the worst case scenario, that perfect storm of things that can never happen, is absolutely going to happen to you, because if you plan for it, you can deal with it. If you don't, you'll be consumed by it.
And with that, my cat is currently attempting to attack my blinds, so I'm going to have to go.
All right. Thanks again, guys. Thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully we see you all back here next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.